On today's installment of Locked On Texans, one of the best football minds here in the city of Houston will be joining us today. Cole Thompson, editor and Texans beat writer over at Texans Wire, USA Today.com.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers, to this Friday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your Texans football analyst in and out of NRG Stadium, Johnson Sports Guy Hickman, on the other side of the screen. Welcome back to the city of Houston for the time being, of course, but Detroit News is on. Still Texans Credential Media member, Cody Davis. We got a fun show for you today featuring good, Cody, what you call him? A great football mind?
Great football mind. One of my best friends here in the city of Houston, especially in this media world, Cole Thompson, man. When I tell you guys, and you guys are going to see, man, when I tell you Cole literally has one of the best football minds here in the city of Houston, man, I literally
it doesn't stop.
No, it definitely doesn't stop.
It does not stop. Oh, man, congratulations on getting married. Yeah, but did you see the SEC changes in the update? Cole, man, did you see that catch? I did see that catch from Nico Collins, but I'm also worrying if the UT will actually survive. So, Cole, man, his mind is always thinking football, especially when you look at the college side of it. But he does a very good job of being able to articulate and putting it on paper and talking about it. So I can't wait to hear from Cole Thompson. But we got to open up today's show looking at the practice squad. However, Cody, take us away. Oh, thank you to all of our first-time listeners and viewers. Please subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. And as always, thank you to our everydayers coming back to continue to listen to Cody and myself talk Texans. Now, Cody, take it away.
Yes, sir. And like we already say on today's installment, we're going to have Cole Thompson on. We're going to get his thoughts about the Houston Texans 53-man roster. And we're also going to give his thoughts about the expectation for the 2024 campaign. But we're going to take a look at the Houston Texans putting together their practice squad roster. They have already filled 13 practice squad spots. And John, when I tell you I am pretty impressed by this practice squad roster, let me tell you, I was actually more amazed by who the Texans were able to keep around on this practice squad roster versus a 53-man roster itself. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but look, at the end of the day, like I mentioned, this is the price you pay when you finally have a good team. You are not surprised, well, with the exception of one, maybe two, but you're not surprised by the makeup of the Houston Texans official at the time 53-man roster. We know throughout this whole entire season, especially before week 1 of the 2024 campaign, they are definitely going to revamp this roster again. However, the practice squad roster, I love it. Solomon Byrd had an opportunity to stick around. Troy Harrison had an opportunity to stick around. Our guy, who has basically been a part of the Houston Texans since John and I have been covering this team back in 2019, 2020. Johnny Johnson III is still part of the practice squad roster. D'Angelo Ross, JJ Taylor. I'm just naming out a couple guys that I really like, but of course at the top of my list, and you guys already know, Malik Fisher and Max Tooley. I would not be surprised, especially given how thin this linebacker unit is, that they will probably call up Max Tooley come week 1 of the regular season, because once again, I'm pretty sure everybody already know, but if you don't know, Christian Harris will start the season on IR, which means he's going to miss the first 4 games of the season. I love what Max Tooley had an opportunity to do during preseason, balled out in training camp. Preseason stats, I believe he had like 10 or 11 tackles, 1 quarterback hit, 1 pass deflection. I really like what I saw out of that young man. And to me, he was arguably, if not the second best, the best undrafted rookie who went out there and balled, and one of the best rookies overall, in my opinion.
You know who I like on this practice squad for Houston? I like a couple of players. Number one, I like the fact that Houston was able to retain Cameron Irvin, offensive lineman. They got Blake Fisher, right? Fisher. I don't know if you guys know that song. I love that song. But they got Blake Fisher, second round pick. He's going to be I think a very good player for Houston in the future. And he got a lot of good work in the preseason and at practice going up against a premier young pass rusher in Will Anderson and one of the best pass rushers in the NFL in Danielle Hunter. But I like the fact that they got at Cam Irvin, and I think he's a former first-round pick, right? Started nearly 60 games. I think that if something happens, he can get called up to kind of bail Houston's out in terms of whether or not the depth of the talent that they have across that offensive line can hold up or not. But honestly, guys, Tim Settle just got back. He was out for a while with injury. Kurt Hinish is now out. He's also on short-term IR list, so he'll miss the first 4 games. You got Foley Fatukasi, Mario Edwards, Khalil Davis. Again, Tim Settle just got back. I think the blessing in disguise, and Houston was kind of playing with their fate a little bit, was releasing Marcus Harris and being able to retain him back to the practice squad. Cody, you like Max Tooley, and that's all fine and dandy. But I think how this current linebacker room is put together, we're going to tell a lot. We're going to be able to see a lot, from Henry T. And he's going to be able to tell us whether or not he's improved from last year. Now, on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, I posted a clip from the Pittsburgh Steelers game where I saw a major improvement in his pass coverage, noticing the play, being able to get back in that zone and take away, I want to say it was Justin Fields' read in the middle of the field. And I think last year that wouldn't have been the case. We understand that Henry T gives Houston a little bit more in the run game. So that's going to leave you with Azeez, Henry T, Delshon Phillips, Neville Hewitt, and rookie Jamal Hill. That's 5 guys right there. That's 5 guys, 5 bodies, and 2 that have gotten a lot of good reps in the preseason when I look at Azeez and Henry T. But for the D tackle position, the interior D line, it's only really been Mario Edwards and Foley that we can expect to play and be productive week 1 as starters. It's only been Khalil Davis as a rotational guy. Kurt won't play the first 4 weeks. That leaves you with Marcus Harris, who has got some – I talk about Blake Fisher. Marcus Harris got some good work in this offseason, preseason and training camp. Going up against Shaq, got some good reps and snaps during preseason. I don't have his preseason numbers up, but he made some plays during the preseason moments. And so I'm looking at the IDL, the interior defensive line unit, as maybe the thinnest right now on this defense, as maybe the thinnest right now across this team. And I think Marcus Harris gives Houston the player personnel of a player that's been in the building, knows exactly what we want, and has been able to perform that way, given his opportunities, and can come in. And I'm not going to say be a game breaker, be a game changer, be any of those things, but can be a body on the field that we can trust. So I wouldn't be surprised if Houston calls him up before the week 1 game versus the Indianapolis Colts.
We talk a lot about the Houston Texans practice squad right now, but at the end of the day, of course, what's most important is the Texans 53-man roster. Cole Thompson coming up next on the other side of the break.
After lunch, guys, are you getting tired? Tired. I want to take a nap. Tired. I'm sleepy. Well, you are not alone. In fact, research shows that more than 70% of us hit the wall after lunch. Let a 5-hour energy shot help you leap over that wall instead of crashing into it. 5-hour energy fixes tired fast, whether you have a long list to do for work or a list of DIY projects to tackle back at home. Take a 5-hour energy shot so you can check everything off your list. If you're like me, you always have a large list of projects for work. Man, I have a lot of stuff to do at work. But whenever I get an opportunity to get that extra kick, I look at 5-hour energy shot. Go to the gas station. Hey, my friend, you know what I'm back for? I go get my 5-hour energy shot. Or if you want that energy right before your workout, want to get in shape, having trouble staying motivated, make 5-hour energy shots part of your lifestyle and get the energy boost you need to get fit. We all know sometimes you need that extra boost because you don't even want to get to the gym, right? But take a 5-hour energy shot and see if you don't go to the gym or not, and not only get in the gym, but kill that workout. 5-hour energy shots give you the feeling of alertness and energy you need to get in the zone. Again, 5-hour energy gives you the feeling that you need to get in the zone. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. Get 5-hour energy products today. You can use my promo code Locked On Football to receive 20% off your order. That is Locked On FB to receive 20% off your order.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday installment of Locked On Texans. As promised, I got my guy, Mr. Cole Thompson, editor and beat writer at Texans Wire. You know, I'm trying my hardest not to say Sports Illustrated because, as you guys know, that used
we
to
don't
be
do that no more. No, don't do that to me, Cody. Don't you dare put that evil on me. That voodoo magic does not come back and haunt us anymore. We are no longer associated with that company. We have moved on to greener pastures. And Brian, we are actually now the 2023 Texans, you and I. We have gone past the dark times, and now we are in great light. And it's so good to see you, friend. I've missed you.
Oh, man, I miss you too, man. For those of you guys who don't know, man, me and Cole used to work together at Sports Illustrated, man. We used to always, bounce ideas off each other head. I can't lie, I miss working with my boy Cole, but we finally had an opportunity to get him on over here at Locked On Texans. And Cole, I had, my boots on the ground for a very long time off of 16 and Kirby. Had to move, but, with everything that's going on, especially with the regular season. Especially with the regular season starting, I had to get my boy Cole on. As you know, early on in the week, the Houston Texans put together their 53-man roster. And Cole, right off the bat, what was the biggest surprise to you in terms of seeing whether who made the 53 and some names who did not unfortunately make it?
Well, let's talk about who did make it. British Brooks is awesome. Like his story and the way that you talked to him yesterday, and we got to go one-on-one with him during Wednesday's press conference. He is an easy player to root for. Guy tears his knee up when he was in college in 2022, misses over 600 days of practice, comes on back. His first game, he rushes for over 100 yards at the University of North Carolina. He actually didn't really think he was going to be playing football anymore, and then he got convinced to start training after the NFL draft. Goes ahead and finds way under a roster, and he's willing to do a little bit of everything. And the word earned was used more often than not when talking about a guy like British Brooks. He had to earn everything, earn his way when he was at North Carolina into the eyes of Mac Brown. He had to earn his way to the trust of not just special teams coordinator Frank Ross, but also the general manager, Nick Caserio, with D'Amico Ryans, with offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick. He had to earn his place on the roster, and he's going to do a little bit of everything. When you look at Andrew Beck and how they utilized him last year, that's how I think you're going to see British Brooks be used, is not just an H-back, not just a fullback. He's going to probably play a little bit of in the I formation if they ever run it inside the red zone. They're going to use him on special teams. He's just going to be that Swiss Army knife. And if you go back and you watch that Los Angeles Rams game, you can see why they like him. When you're blocking Jason Taylor 2.0 and the son of one of the greatest pass rushers in the NFL history, you're feeling pretty good about what direction you're going in. I thought Xavier Hutchinson wasn't a surprise to make the team, but I thought it was such a surprise the way that you felt confident in him after this last game. He led the Texans in receptions, led the team in receiving yards. Never found the end zone, but he was arguably the most consistent playmaker on game days during the 4 preseason matchups. John Mechie had some really good days, and we know what Mech can do when he's open in space, and his route running is probably up there with Stephon Diggs. I mean, honestly, if you're telling me just straight route running, there's probably no one else besides Stephon that I would take in terms of consistency at the position than Mech. So we've kind of figured he was going to make it, but nobody had Robert Woods. Like nobody had Robert Woods. And I thought it was so mind-boggling that we see the active roster and he's not traded. He's not released. He's sticking around. And I actually asked D'Amico yesterday, what was so standoutish about Robert Woods and what made you guys keep him? And he goes, I don't know what you guys are thinking that he was flying under the radar. And we're all just like, well, yeah, nobody had him on the active roster because of where are you playing a dude that does belong to start? Like, it feels criminal. It truly feels criminal that this is a guy that's going to be the 5th string wide receiver at best on this roster. But he's a veteran. He's somebody that has been very well respected inside that locker room. He's somebody that has won over the coaches. He's somebody that has shown, I think, over this past training camp, he's not afraid to offer value with the backups. He's willing to step on in. I think his position flexibility, being able to line up in the slot, the outside, on the perimeter, he can be an F flanker, he can be a Z receiver, he can be a blocker. That's going to, I think, allow him to be on this team for right now. And maybe if there's the right phone call that's offered in the before week 1, we see a deal get done, but he's on the team. And then, of course, the biggest surprise is Noah Brown isn't. And Noah Brown, you know, the best ability is your availability. And you and I can both agree with that. But the Texans aren't in the playoffs last year without Noah Brown. Like 2 things can be true at once. He was injured prone a lot. He missed the postseason because of, in the very first drive, he suffered a shoulder injury and was done for the year. He missed all of OTAs. He missed a lot of training camp. But you don't win against Tampa without Noah Brown because if he had 153 yards, you certainly do not win against Cincinnati because if he sets up the game-winning field goal for Matt Amendola, and a lot of people forget this, he was the one that caught the 3-yard touchdown pass to tie the game against Tennessee in Nashville when Case Keenum was your starting quarterback. So there's a real shot that the Texans are actually 7-10 without Noah Brown. But the good news is that he's already on another active roster, signs with the Washington Commanders. They need a number 2 receiver. And what's so interesting, Cody, is that, and I tweeted this out yesterday, last season, Noah Brown comes in for the number 2 overall pick. He was the second receiver taken. How funny is it now he is with the number 2 overall pick, the second quarterback taken? You can just go ahead and I may have thrown a couple of dollars down yesterday on DC quarterback Jaden Daniels to win Offensive Rookie of the Year because he did the same thing when you had him there last year. Andrew Beck getting cut, I think, was another one that was a little shocking because of that is a fullback, but again, availability is your best ability, and he was not available for most of training camp. Ben Skowronek is another one that I figured was maybe a bit shocking only because of when you keep 7 receivers, you cut him. You traded a 7th-round pick to bring him in. And Nick Caserio is one of those people that does not like to admit defeat. If he has to, he has to. You got to wave the white flag and say, it was my mistake. But every draft pick is valuable in any sense, and to let go of a guy known for being a special teams ace, to keep another special teams ace like Steven Sims, whether or not you agree because of one is a returner and one is a gunner, I mean, that's really the point of value, but you trade away a pick and now you have nothing to show for it, which again, you sometimes got to make those risks to better your roster, but you really didn't. And the reason why you made that pick was that way you didn't have to go claim him off of waivers and hope that he would fall to you the way that you did with Joe Mixon back when he was going to get released in March. Outside of that, you know, most of the names were, I think, really good. If there was one really big head scratcher that I just never got behind, it was Marcus Harris, the defensive tackle out of Auburn. Now, here's the good news. He went through waivers unclaimed, and I'm like, holy crap. I texted an Auburn staffer, actually, and he was like, you're not getting him back. Like, Houston is not going to keep him. And I sent him an emoji, the laughing face afterwards, and he's like, you are so lucky. Because of that's a guy who, when you talk to people around the league and those who have played the position, they believe he is going to be a difference maker, even in a rotational role, sooner rather than later. And so at the very end of the preseason, you did start to see him kind of turn the corner. And the good thing is that now you have Tim Settle, now you have Fulikowski, now you have Khalil Davis, now you have Mario Edwards. If one of them gets hurt, maybe by week 4 or week 5, and you got to put them on the IR, you're confident that Marcus Harris's progression is still moving in the right direction, that you can start him as that rotational guy where Davis maybe sees more reps, and that role that Davis plays, that's what you get from Harris. But you're sitting on pins and needles all day yesterday going, dude, please come back. Like, if you go through Texans Twitter, everyone was losing their mind when he came back and just rejoicing like it was Maximus Verdes. Are you not entertained? And it's like, yeah, because of this is a dude that should not have been cut. That was the one where I take off my journalistic background hat, look at it from a fan perspective. I kind of would get where the fan base is a little upset.
Cole, out of all the names you mentioned, there's one, possibly two names that I really want to ask you about. And one, how shocking in a way was it to see Cam Akers be part of the 53-man roster? And where do you think, and what do you think is next for Dameon Pierce? And the only reason why I really wanted to ask you this question was because you were standing right there next to me when Cam Akers, after he was signed, and Coach D'Amico Ryan, I know my listeners' views heard me, refer to this a lot, but when someone asked him, can you give us, the details into what went on bringing in Cam Akers, and the only thing Coach D'Amico Ryan said was, we just brought him in to see if he can compete, and that was it. And Cole, just as much as I know, when Coach adds a player to a team that he is fully confident in, and anytime we ask him, hey, what was the thinking behind this player or letting this player go, he gives you a lot of the thinking.
Yeah.
But as short as that answer was, I was like, oh, that's definitely a camp body. Definitely not going to be part of the 53-man roster. You were standing right there next to me at the start of training camp when he wasn't getting no snaps, doing 11 on 11, 7 on 7. I mean, our good friend Sarge pointed out to me, remember when he first started, he didn't even have his name at the back of the jersey.
Nope,
They just gave him
number
a blank
22
jersey. And, it's like, not only did he make this 53-man roster, he is now basically RB2. So where do you stand with Akers making it? And like I mentioned, what do you think is next for DP?
All right, so Cam Akers at one point was the number one high school recruit at the running back position when he went to Florida State. And so you have to go back and look at that perspective, what he was supposed to be when he was joining the Seminoles. And this was a can't miss, 1,000 yard, 1,300 total yards, 9 touchdowns type guy, because he could easily just find ways into the crevices. And then again, you watch as he was making plays against Los Angeles and New York. His quick cuts were a big reason why a lot of people were so high on him when he was coming out and joining the Los Angeles Rams back in 2020. But the Achilles injuries, I mean, you tier 1, your career is about to stockpile plummet. Like, there is going to be a lot of lost love between fan bases and organizations with the player because of you don't know if you're going to get him back. Tearing 2 should be a retirement. Like, that is where it's really interesting to see Cam Akers. And then so he shows up to camp and you're like, he less than 9 months ago was being carted off of a football field in Minnesota with a torn Achilles. But the thing is that you should have never doubted him, and I didn't, because I watched that man back in July of 2021 tear his Achilles and come back and help his Los Angeles Rams win a Super Bowl. And so there's this aura about him of, if you don't believe me, that's cool. I'm going to show you why. And he did. And he was the number one running back in terms of yards after contact, yards per play, yards per attempt. Cody, he averaged 4.9 yards per run. Which, if those of you who are listening at home don't know why I'm saying that so shocked, the Texans outside of Devin Singletary last year, and Devin averaged 4 yards per run. Averaged as a unit, 3.1 yards per play. So this guy, in one preseason game against backups, which we have to go ahead and clarify, just to preface that there is a separation, nearly doubled the production of every other running back on that roster, and with 2 torn Achilles tendons, looked better than anyone else out there on the football field. So he also adds value in the passing attack. You see the way that he turned that spin move where CJ Stroud lost his freaking mind in the Hall of Fame. What you are holding out hope is what you're going to get moving forward. I think he can be a good complimentary back. I don't think at this point in his career, you want to pigeonhole him to being now a lead runner. You have Joe Mixon, and you're paying Joe Mixon $9 million annually to be your lead running back. That is the game plan. That has not changed overnight just because you get a great performance from Cam Akers in the preseason. But let's talk about Dameon Pierce for a minute. DP is a guy that has earned my respect. DP is a guy that has earned my, I would say, not criticism. I would say probably confidence that I've seen him actually live up to expectations before. But the problem is that you hear Coach Ryans say after the preseason game on Saturday, I've seen enough of Dameon Pierce to know what I'm getting in him. Well, you and I have seen enough of Dameon Pierce to know that he averaged less than 3 yards per play last year, and he averaged just over a yard per play this season. And I get it. You don't have for one game Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil out there. So that's going to hurt your production. I completely get it. And then you don't have Laramie Tunsil out there for the New York Giants game. And I get it. And so you're averaging 1.1 yards per play, and you're not showing that burst that you had as a rookie in Pep Hamilton's offense versus Bobby Slowick's offense, which is fine. The problem is that everyone's going to say, well, it was against starters. It was against starters. But then you go ahead and you look back at the depth chart and the play sheet and the number of snaps for Pittsburgh, and it wasn't against starters. It was against Pittsburgh's backups. And you were averaging still 1 yard per play. It's challenging. And the worst part is that confidence is such a main element in this sport. There are guys who I have believed were going to be incredible talents when they came out of college. And you know me, my background is covering college football, and I've seen what they are able to do. And I've talked to scouts, and they've said, we can see a way that they will transition to the NFL and they will be home run hits. And the main thing that people don't ever realize is confidence and the deterioration of it really does factor into their on-field play. So when they start to struggle, and now they have this giant negative black cloud over their head saying, you have to deliver, you have to perform, you have to show up, you have to be this version once again, or else you're going to be shown the door. Well, now they're playing with that thought process in their head. And so it feels like Dameon Pierce making the roster, I'm not going to complain entirely because of that he is going to, I think, get his fair shake with the starting of 5 offensive line. He's going to probably be a factor inside the red zone, kind of like he was last year. And you hope that he's going to be able to build off that in games like Indianapolis and Chicago and Jacksonville before you go play New England. But by that week 6 game, the trade deadline is going to be right around the corner. And if he is just not finding his success, the best thing for everyone involved is to send him to another organization where he gets to hit the reset button and he gets to gain back that confidence. Because right now, the confidence is at an all-time low, even if he doesn't admit it, even if he says, I like where I'm at. I believe that he does, but the results aren't meshing with the persona. And when that doesn't happen, that ultimately doesn't benefit anybody. It's not helping out Dameon Pierce. It's not helping out the Texans. It's not going to be a thing that works for anybody at the end of the day.
More Cole Thompson. We're going to get his thoughts on expectations for the 2024 campaign. And what do you think about the Houston Texans defense going into the season?
Passion, drive, and patience. Hopefully this is what the Houston Texans will have in the 2024 season. But this is also the formula to help you win championships for your number one ride or die. I'm talking about your ride, baby, your car. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, or all three, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the James Harden or the future CJ Stroud. I'm talking about the MVP of the road and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday installment of Locked On Texans. Editor and Texans beat writer at Texans Wire, USA Today, Cole Thompson is joining me today. Cole, before we get into the expectations for the 2024 campaign, I do want to ask you, looking on the defensive side of the ball, how do you feel about the Houston Texans cornerback unit after they had released their 53-man roster? Because, I look at it from a standpoint, it's top heavy. Kamara Lassiter, I think that's everybody's favorite player, at the end of training camp at the end of preseason. I think he's definitely going to be a dog. I think our good friend DJ Bieniemy had put in his ESPN article. Don't be surprised if Kamari Lassiter wins the defensive player of the year. So I'm like, oh, okay. Then of course, here on this show, me and John, we talked about it a lot. If that young man could stay healthy, this could potentially be an all-pro season for Derek Stingley Jr. But outside of both of those guys, to me, that cornerback room looked mighty thin.
Thin is probably the right word. What I will say is, what version am I getting of Jeff Okudah? Like, that is probably, I think, the big picture. Because you got to remember, at one point last year when he was playing in Atlanta, he was not only a starting cornerback, he was actually outperforming A.J. Terrell. There was like a 4-week period where Jeff Okudah actually finished with a higher pass coverage grade by Pro Football Focus. He was better in man coverage, and also I think he had more pass breakups than the guy that just got paid a buttload and also is probably going to be the new asking price or starting asking price for Derek Stingley Jr. now that he just brought in David Mulligeta as his agent. So we already know that's a dude that can play up to expectations. But also, let's talk about the last 7 weeks of the season, where by week 15, Okudah was benched for another player who was at one point practice squad member of the Atlanta Falcons because he wasn't able to stay on the field. The big thing is that if you're getting the version for the first 7 weeks that you will see as a backup, where you're only having him fill in, I don't know, maybe one game because of Stingley's going to get that injury for a hamstring that he tweaked in practice and they just don't want to risk it, or something like that going into the bye week. Like, you'll get that, and you give him 2 weeks to rest. Can he be the 7-week version? Chris Boyd's here because he's a special teams dude. Like, that's the thing, is you have Chris Boyd because if he just offers incredible value on special teams. And you go back and you remember the Tank Dell punt against Pittsburgh, and Cameron Johnson nearly knocks him out, and who is right there in his ear about ready to clock him in the face to defend his teammate? That is number 17. You brought him on the roster because of that play. Like, I even tweeted out after that moment, Chris Boyd just made the roster because of that's what you're getting in him. Miles Bryant's an awesome story because this is a guy that didn't make the active roster in New England his first 2 years. Then he did, and then he ended up starting for a little while. But Miles Bryant also is a dude that you want at most playing in the nickel, and really you would want him at safety. And really, you'd want him at safety, and you don't really want him in the nickel. But if you had to play him in the nickel, it's not the end of the world, so it's fine. I think that the Texans internally feel good about the position because of what they feel about their top-heavy part, where it is going to be a lot of Kamari Lassiter, 100% of reps. It is going to be a lot of Derek Stingley, 100% of reps. You're looking at potentially what I would say the defensive rookie of the year and the defensive player of the year dark horse going into 2024. And it's not going to be shocking because we have seen a cornerback in the last 5 years win defensive player of the year, Stephon Gilmore. So you could get that in Stingley, and he's doing his job. And if you're getting the version of the locksmith that we saw at Georgia last year, where in the toughest conference in college football against wide receivers like Xavier Legette, like Malik Neighbors, and countless others over the last 2 seasons that all were day one selections, he had the lowest pass coverage success rate at 38.5%. If you're getting that dude, you don't have to worry about your backups. But I think that there also is that fine line of, do you believe that you can work with these guys? But also, what if you can't? What if one of them does get hurt? Do you feel accomplished? And especially, let's just say Kamari Lassiter suffers a shoulder strain. He can't go against Jacksonville in week 3. And now you need Jeff Okudah to step up. That's a division game. That's going to have massive implications on if you are tied at 3-3 or 4-2, if you do end up getting the win and you do get the division title. Because the last thing you want to do is now be sitting at 9-8 and out of the playoffs because if you didn't feel good about your cornerback depth.
We are about 9 days away from the start of the 2024 season. And Cole, about a year ago today, if somebody had told me that we will be looking at a team with championship aspiration, I would have laughed. Not because I ain't have faith in the team. I just didn't think that the rebuild and the success that they had would at the time, a first-year head coach, first-year quarterback, and so many of your top players still being pretty young, didn't expect for them to put it together this soon. But Cole, here we are 9 days away. We know what the Houston Texans did in 2023. We already know about their schedule. The last 5-6 games of the season is definitely going to be must-see TV. Cole, where do you stand, especially after watching this team day after day after day, doing following OTAs, mandatory minicamp, rookie minicamp, training camp, preseason? Where do you stand, and what do you think is the ceiling and, unfortunately, the potential floor of the 2024 Texans?
I am the negative Nancy that everyone hates, that everyone wants to have to draw back in. I know.
You know what? Listeners and viewers, don't listen to him.
No. Listen to me, because here's the thing, Cody. I don't want to hear at the end of the year, you guys set us up for such high expectations, and there was no ground. They're a good team. If you were to ask me right now, where would I place them among the AFC contenders? I would say probably number 3. And you could probably argue number 2. You could. Because the names that they brought in was one thing, but you're also talking about the progression of these young foundational pieces. What you have in Derek Stingley Jr., what you have in Jalen Petrie now that he's lining up in the nickel more, what you have in also Will Anderson, what you're seeing in a healthy Kenyon Green, what you got in Juice Scruggs, what you have in guys like Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard signed to a long-term deal, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, CJ Stroud. You feel really good. So it's great that you added in the pieces that are only going to elevate you from what you saw a season ago. But here's where I have to be the devil's advocate. Last season, you played a 4th place schedule. And I'm not saying that that is the only fault, because there have been teams that have shown improvements, gotten the right free agents in the building, and been able to win with the 1st place schedule. You also played the NFC South. And that's the part that people don't pay enough attention to. They finished 12 games under 500 combined. You're playing the NFC North this year, where Caleb Williams is walking into a ready-made situation to at least get to 10 wins and be a playoff team. The Detroit Lions, a team that you will know very well very soon, is, in my opinion, the favorites to win the NFC because of what they bring back and what they added in. You also have the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love and CJ Stroud are right on the same stratosphere in terms of wow factor success last offseason. And the Minnesota Vikings, I think, have a defense that can keep you at least humble, and you play in their backyard. So the ceiling for me with this team, with Stephon Diggs, with the healthy Joe Mixon that can elevate the run game, with Cam Akers that I think is going to be a factor in the run game, this is a 12-win team. The ceiling is 12 wins. I could easily see where you are the number 2 seed, maybe even the number 1 seed in the AFC. The floor for me is 9-8 because there's going to be that stretch of games, especially right around Thanksgiving and Christmas. Those 11 days, 3 games. You have a Saturday game and then a Wednesday game to re-prepare, and it's against the defending Super Bowl champions and the reigning MVP. That you got to go 2-1 in that stretch, in my opinion, to be able to guarantee that you're at least at 11 wins. And so you may be 10 wins. But here's the beauty of it all, Cody. What I will say is not every record is the same. The biggest lie in sports has always been you are what your record says you are. That is a load of crap because not every record is treated the same. There will be teams that play 4th place schedules. The Cincinnati Bengals are a perfect example of this. They lost their starting quarterback last year, and they benefit this offseason with a 4th place schedule. They may end up being 10-7. They may end up being 11-6. The Texans may be 11-6. But the way that we view these two squads are going to be completely different because of who you had to face to get those 11 wins versus who the Texans had to face to get those 11 wins. So if you're a 10-7 squad this year, feel more confident compared to what you were last year. Because last year, those 10 wins, you could probably pinpoint where you felt like if you were maybe playing against a Green Bay squad or against a Buffalo Bills squad, you would have lost that game and you would have gone 9-8 or 8-9. But this year, now you have the schedule that can benefit you and say, you know what? We're trending in the right direction. And more importantly, we are a playoff team. This is a playoff team. This is a team that I think can make it to the AFC divisional round. This is a team that I think could easily make it to the AFC championship round. And Stroud could win the MVP. I'm not doubting any of that. What I am saying is, for those saying Super Bowl or bust, one guy, one dude, one has bested the man that lives up in Arrowhead right now. And he did it one time. And he did it one time. And they added in really good weapons this offseason. I'm sorry. If you're asking me to take Kansas City or the field, I'm taking Kansas City simply because of what you have in Patrick Mahomes. Now, that does not mean that the Texans won't be complacent, and that does not mean they won't get an upset win. I actually have on my prediction that's releasing on Monday, the Texans beating Kansas City in Arrowhead during the regular season. But that doesn't mean that it's going to happen twice. Lightning never strikes the same location twice, and that does not mean that the Texans are getting 2-0 against Patty Mahomes and Andy Reid.
Well, what you said. Well, first of all, what you said made a lot of sense. And second of all, when you said you don't beat Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid in Arrowhead on 2 separate occasions, makes a lot of sense. Because you remember back in 2019 regular season, they went inside Arrowhead, won the game, and then they revisit that same stadium. We all know how that ended. That's part of the reason why.
Remember what happened in that game?
3-4 years went the way they did.
remember a good old 24-0 first quarter and how many people were celebrating, getting ready to go out and paint the town blue, steel blue, and battle red. And it's like, okay, he woke up and chose violence. Let's not have that happen again.
Well, hey, look, but I think, man, regardless how far this team goes, especially if they make it to like conference championship, or in my opinion, I think this is realistic if they have an opportunity to represent this conference in New Orleans come February 2025. I think 2024 Texans, man, I think this is definitely going to be a very special year for this organization.
This would be a year that we will talk about for many decades moving forward. I 100% agree with you on that. The question is, how does the story end? In triumph or tragedy?
And hopefully triumph, because I'm not gonna lie to you, Cole, I'm sick of that guy in Arrowhead at this point. I'm sick of him. I'm sick of him. I really am. Not as much, let's say about a decade ago, how much I was sick of the guy, that used to be in New England. But then again, I kind of like the guy a lot, New England, especially when he came back against the Falcons. And we all know why I love that the most.
Yeah, I say we all know why you enjoy that one, Cody.
But the guy in Arrowhead, man, I'm getting sick of him, man. We need something new. But Cole Thompson, editor and Houston Texans beat writer over at TexansWireUSA.com. Cole, really quick before I let you go, where can our listeners follow you at on all of your work? Because I know, like me, you have so much stuff that you're doing, especially when it comes to college. And look, if you guys enjoy Cole talking about the NFL and the Houston Texans, you guys have no idea how much better this man can literally be when you start talking college football with him, because I literally consider my brother one of the best college beat reporters, everybody. And we're gonna be like CJ and Take right now.
We CJ.
But just his football mind is unbelievable. So please let everybody know where they can follow you at.
Yeah, listen, I will go toe-to-toe, war-to-war with anybody when it comes to college football takes, and you will be obliterated. I am the Stephen A. Skip Bayless, will not stop until you crave and say uncle when it comes to college football. If you want to follow me on that venture, it's at SEC Unfiltered. We talk college football, SEC every single day. The season's right underway. Games start tomorrow. Games actually started last night, but they really start tomorrow. Week 1, go follow me over there at SEC Unfiltered. We got a YouTube channel, 13,000 plus and counting, at Mr. Cole Thompson. If you want to give me a follow on Twitter right below to keep up with everything Texans related. We're boots on the ground at NRG. We're not just giving you information behind closed doors. Every day we are there with Sarge, with DJ, with JA, with Aaron Wilson, with Miss Kim, everybody that you can imagine that is a part of the Houston Texans community. I know them. I love them. And make sure you follow all of them as well. Follow Landry Locker, follow all the great reporters, Cody Stutes, but at Mr. Cole Thompson, if you want the number 1 source for conference, all things Texans related.
Oh, he chose violence. He said,
I chose violence today, Cody Davis.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. And please be sure to follow my co-host, John Hickman, at John_Hickman12. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.